everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
Today we're taking a look at a game that actually started as an app, and then they fused it, and it became a card game. Well, we're talking about SolForge Fusion. SolForge, a kind of a, it's not, I guess the app was, the first one was a collectible card game of sorts.
Yeah, I think it's always been this sort of thing, and now you, of course, have the paper product, and you will take two decks that are all generated by this algorithm, some wizardry magic type stuff, and then you take two halves and shuffle them up, and bam, you've got your unique deck. A little like KeyForge. It's sort of hard to talk about this game without at least mentioning one.
That's true. It is actually the only game that's really like KeyForge.
Yeah. But of course, you do some very minor deck building by just mixing two halves. That's really it.
I'll show us more.
All right, you got it. The way you win the game is to bring your opponent's life down from a total of 50 at the beginning of the game all the way down to 0. If you manage to do that before they do it to you, you win the game. To set up the game, you are going to select two decks of cards. Each one comes with their own breakdown of creatures and spells and whatnot. You are going to take all the level 1s from both, and you're going to shuffle them together, setting the rest of them, the level 2s and the level 3s, aside over here. Then on the backs of these cards that I just showed you are these SolForge characters. You are going to select one to be your Forgeborn, and you are going to set that character over here. Putting the other one aside, it will not be in play. You shuffle up all the level 1s to make a deck. The other ones, like I said, are over here. You have these Forge cards. One player begins lit. They are the first player. The other one is turned face down, and you are ready to begin. So each round is going to go like this. We're going to, from our shuffled deck, draw a hand of 5 cards. My opponent would do the same thing, and then we are going to take turns playing cards. We're going to play 2 cards each. I'll play one, they'll play one, I'll play one, they'll play one. That's it. Then we go into combat. So these cards are going to have a few different things listed on them. They're going to have an amount of strength that they hit for. They're going to have an amount of health. And then they might have some ability, a deploy ability that it happens when they come into play, things like that. This is a creature. You will also have a spell that will do something when you play it and then go away into the banish pile. So it'll go over here, and it is out of the game. Every time you play a card in this game, you need to find the next higher level of that card and put it in your discard pile. And you'll go through these and find that, put it over here. So every single card that is played cycles up to a better, stronger version of that card. So for example, on my very first play here, I might play this card. This character will go somewhere in one of my lanes. Every lane can only have one character in it. If my forge is lit, the cards go in the front. If it is not, they'll go in the back. So I'll play this one there. That'll be my first play. Then I grab this deck. I look for level 2 of that card. And I am going to put it in my my discard pile there. Then my opponent would play. They'll have their own deck with their own 5 cards, and they'll play something. And they'll do the same thing. Perhaps they'll play over here. They could go in the same lane in the back. They could go into a different lane. So, that's up to them. Then I get to play again. I'm going to perhaps play this card here, this Taunting Scavenger. I'll go in here. I'll find Taunting Scavenger, discard that. And then this one has a deploy ability that says you may move an enemy creature to this lane. Okay? So perhaps I can move this one to that lane. And my opponent will play. Once that's done, there will be combat. If there's a creature in the front row, it will fight. If there's an opposing creature, like this one here, they deal damage to each other. This much damage against the opponent's health. And health in this game, or the hits rather, will stick around on these characters. So in this case, they deal 6 to me, taking me out. I deal 3 to them, bringing them down from a total of 8 down to 5. This is going to go to the banish pile, and this one, which is unopposed, is going to deal 1 damage straight to their 50 life points. Once that's done, then we are going to discard every card in our hands that is still there. That goes to the discard pile. Anything in the back row is going to advance to the front row. So my opponents would move up. We are going to switch who has the lit beacon, and then we draw 5 again. Again, you do not carry over cards in your hand. You will discard the ones you have remaining and draw a new hand. And then it'll be my opponent's go. They'll play, I'll play, they'll play, I'll play, combat happens. Then we discard that and we do it again for a third time. Now this deck has 20 cards in it. It will always have 20 cards in it because every time we cycle this deck, you've replaced a card with the leveled up version. However, we only do 3 cycles of it, meaning the last 5 cards we do not draw. So, once a couple of them have been played from here and the rest discarded, and the same is true for this next hand, then we are going to take this pile and shuffle it into these 5 cards and go to the second cycle of the deck. So all of this gets shuffled up with many of these cards now in here, and now we have the ability at level 2 here of our Forgeborn here. So you can do this besides playing a card. You can also choose to do that. So for example, Ironbeard here has at level 2 Intimidate, set a creature's combat to 0. So I can do that once during that cycling. During that cycle, anytime I play a level 2 card, I'll do the same thing I did before. I'll find the level 3, I will put it in my discard pile, and anything from here that leaves or is played from my hand and leaves goes out, goes to the banish pile, so that you do not have the same card at different levels in your deck at the same time. Once we cycle again, then this ability can be done once, and then a final time this ability can be done once. If any player's deck, or life total rather, is brought down to 0, then the game is over and their opponent has won. If that doesn't happen by the time we have the 4th cycle, then whoever has the least life remaining is going to be the loser of the game. So that's largely it. Obviously, these cards are getting better and better as you go along. And if you played with the same 2 decks combined again, you could choose to use the other character that you didn't bring in. The other Forgeborn could be the leader. So each deck comes with 1, and you'll have just 1 in play for that entire session. So that's the game. A few other things that are going to happen, of course. Some cards will create these tokens. You're going to have some cards to help you track extra hits or extra life, or perhaps hits on those on the backs of these. You'll have negatives that you're taking away from the players. You can, of course, use just other tokens as well in the game, and I certainly would recommend that. But that's the general flow of the game, this back and forth lobbying of attacks, trying to have attacks not be defended from the opponent, perhaps blocking an opponent by playing something where they're intending to attack you, and you'd rather have this creature here take it. That's the general idea. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you sort of a flavor or a feel of how the game's going to work out. Let's go ahead and go back up top.
Now, you mentioned in the intro about Keyforge, and that's important not just because of the uniqueness of it, but because it has one half of this game's designers is Richard Garfield, who designed Keyforge and also, as a side note, Magic the Gathering. So I guess he's allowed to riff on himself.
Yeah, right.
But this lets you do one thing that Keyforge did not, which was deck build. Now, granted, you have choices.
Yeah.
But if I say I would like to see these 2 cards working together, I can do so. Because I'll be like, well, one's in this deck, one's in this deck. I'll put those 2 together.
Yeah, the only thing you cannot do is mix 2 halves that are the same color, or the same faction, whatever they're called. But any other combination works. And
that part I like, because if you like a certain one, like, for example, I really like the robots. I can say, okay, they're going to be in my deck. And as much as I like Keyforge, it was always a bit of a pain where I'd be like, oh, this deck is good, but man, I wish it had this card. So now I can do that a little bit more. I can be like, oh, I'm going to use robots, and I'll use this one. Oh, it didn't work together so well. I'll try this one.
Yeah.
Even though it's fewer choices, although you could have thousands of choices too if you want.
Right.
It still gives me a little bit of agency, but I don't feel like I have to build the perfect deck.
Sure. Just mash any 2 halves together. You can play that. How do you feel about there being 2 factions versus there's always 3 in any Keyforge deck? With, of course, that game being fully different. It's
Oh,
its
that
own
doesn't
thing.
bother me. In fact, I wouldn't mind if Keyforge had been 2 factions, actually.
Yeah,
Two feels a little bit controllable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to the mechanisms of the game, there's actually a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the main flow of the game first, which is you have these rows, you're attacking your opponent, which is kind of par for the course of this type of game. But you're also attacking the enemies. And I was just thinking about this because recently you played Epic.
Yeah.
And Keyforge itself, and I'm sorry we keep mentioning Keyforge, but Keyforge and Epic had these grandiose cards where you like go blow the board away.
Yes.
This, for me, fits a better balance. It's not so much that the cards are underpowered, but they don't blow the board away. But you still can play a card that's like, that guy that you thought was invincible is no longer invincible.
Right.
Or that guy who's really powerful, I can eventually beat him down. I never thought any card was overpowered. There was one we laughed about because it went from this weakling to a really huge card. But
well, in this game, this idea of being overpowered, which Epic, a different card game from a different company, is all about every card feeling overpowered, therein is supposed to lie balance. In this one, the nature of the game is that the cards level up. That is absolutely one of the core mechanisms in the game. So, yes, at first, everything should feel small. And then you got version 2 of that, and they get beefier, and the effects are wilder. Then you get to level 3, and they are like that. Then it's like, blam, this guy hits for 17. This is a monstrous big spell, that sort of thing. So it's built into the cadence of the game, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I think that's a neat idea. I do think that the game becomes a little prescribed because of that sort of built-in leveling up. You have to do it. There is no, you play a card, you get the next one, and that's in your deck now. And so that's nice that there is no paying for that, that it just sort of automatically happens, but it does lead to a very specific build-up. The curve is always the same.
sure, but I don't mind because the cards are this. They're going to be different each game.
Yeah.
And it has a weird thing. So in one game we played, there's this one Weenster who turns into a really powerful person.
Yeah.
So I got him the 2nd level. Then I got him the 3rd level, and you know what? I didn't then draw the card.
Right.
Although we then tied and I drew it in the final round, which was very awesome.
Yes.
But I think that's cool. But the leveling up mechanism, I both love it, but it's also my least favorite thing about the game, which is weird. Because I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
I level up a card. Fantastic. Oh, it gets cooler, with a few minor exceptions. If there's a few cards that get worse. But whatever, that's still part of the game. You're starting with a stronger card, and it's not as good or whatever.
They evolve or devolve, and that's prescribed onto the card. You can learn that, right? You could go through your deck and know what that is. And sometimes they dip in the middle and then become great. That's cool. It's all design choices.
The problem, though, with the leveling up is that it's fiddly as all get out, and for some reason, extremely forgettable.
Yes.
I feel like there should be a sign there that says, before you do anything else, level up that card.
Take the next one. Put it in your pile.
Because you get excited. You're like, aha, boom, play this card, and ooh, this happens, and then, oh, that's right, I was supposed to level that card up. And if you don't level a card up, and we a few times got to, when we're reshuffling a deck, and we're like, oh, I'm missing a card.
And you're like, oh, I'm at 19 cards. It's supposed to be a 20-card deck. Now you got to go through the ones you've banished, or whatever that's called, that have cycled out. Find the one you didn't level up. And it's very fiddly. Like the upkeep.
Happened to both of us.
That moment-to-moment upkeep is, because this is a paper format, very easy to forget, right? It's immediately that kind of thing where you go, oh, if this was being handled for me, it would be so much smoother. But every time you play any card, you need to stop dead, grab a pile of cards. There it is. Every time.
But the problem is, I also really like that mechanism.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an odd mix. The rest of it is the same kind of fiddliness I'd find in any CCG of keeping track of health and how much damage and make sure that we do the shields and whatever else. I can live with all that, but that one thing which you have to do. It's not something that is.
And it's the one thing that makes this game different, to be fair. So again, it's this love-hate thing, because it's cool. No other game that I've played that's a physical card game like this, a dueling card game, does this leveling up on a specific schedule. Every time you do it, you level up. That's cool. You technically never play the same card twice in this game ever. That once it goes away, it never cycles back in. It's fully gone. I think that's really neat. One thing we should definitely talk about is the look of this game, because I've got thoughts on the look of this game.
That's true. I didn't like the fiddliness, but
it's a little fiddly, you're right. But the look of this game, this is a brand new game, okay? Just now coming out, basically. And yet, the game just looks very dated. That's not just artwork, okay? The artwork is up to you to decide if you like it or not. There's a lot of it I like. There's a lot of it I find pretty weak, honestly. It sort of has that old collectible card game look to it. Like 90s collectible card game. Unfortunately, I think the card frames and the graphic design in this game also looks to be from that era. It just looks dated.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. It's a modern game. You know, there are many games that manage to look a little flashier, a little more modern, and this one looks, I don't know what it is, just a bit low res.
And it's a little weird because it's not just the, we have other games from the company. They just did Night of the Ninja, which looked great.
Great.
And whether you like the artwork in Ascension or not, the design is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
So this feels weird. I feel like maybe I should go play the app. Maybe that's how it looks in the app too, and they didn't want to confuse people, but it doesn't look clean and new. Now, I can get over that because I'm more caught up in what the stuff's doing, but yeah, man, I wish it looked a lot better. When I first got this box, even the box doesn't look that
very
great.
Flimsy boxes. Yeah, they are
paper mats, and they do have, they have play mats to play and stuff.
This is also a big thing. There are no rules in this box, okay? And here we have Tom has one edition over there. I've got over here with a starter kit. There are no rules in either one of these things. And this is a starter kit. If you're selling me a starter kit, I better be able to start playing from it.
I feel like that's kind of along the lines of Magic. Magic doesn't have the rules in a lot of their stuff now, too.
I know, and that seems to be a modern issue, but I have a problem with that. There should be an ability to learn how to play a game out of that game. There you go.
Here's the thing. So, I don't love the look, and I think it's fiddly, but I really do like the game.
Me too.
I like it a lot. I'm actually giving this an 8. It would get a much higher rating from me were it a prettier... And somehow they could fix the leveling. I have no idea how you fix that other than maybe the app. But it's fast. It's fun. It has nice highs and lows. Like in one game, I thought I was winning, and suddenly it turned on a dime, and I felt like I could have made better choices. Even though there's the lanes, which is similar to games like Hearthstone, but just the idea of I have this card, who am I going to play it on? Where do I think Z's weakest? Maybe that which of his troops can I let come through? And it has a nice feeling of, there's a little bit of similarities to Magic the Gathering, but it's not quite the same.
No, yeah.
There's tiny similarities to Keyforge, but not quite the same. A little bit of similarities to Hearthstone, but it all kind of mixes together to a really nice game. Like I said, if it wasn't as fiddly and as ugly, this might get a 9 from me.
Really?
I really do think so, because I like the game that much. And I do want to play this more. I want to get more decks of this.
Yeah.
I want to get like 20 more decks and then start mixing them and stuff. I think that would be fun. But because it is that good, it's just those other things bring it down a bit. But still pretty high score for me saying stuff's bringing it down.
Yeah. I'm giving it a 7. I also enjoyed it. I think it's a well put together game. It's a game that stands out among other collectible card game type games. Because it is different. A lot of these CCGs, TCGs, whatever, come out. They are just iterations on one another. The theme is different, or your life total is different. But it's the same idea. There's mana, there's creatures, they fight, spells. This has some of that, but at its core, this is its own thing, and you can feel that from the first round. It's punchy. It's a quick-playing game. It does build up to some wild swings, but the look holds it back for me a decent amount. I think the random generator that they're using, whatever algorithm they're using to create deck names and flavor text.
Flavor text. The flavor text
like swinging,
is very forgettable.
swinging and missing. I mean, it's not great. So there's some issues there.
Oh, but I do like the name of this one. What was it? The Mumbling Rage Queens?
The Mumbling Rage Queens is one of the deck names in there, yeah. So,
but then you also, that's cool, but then you also have the calculation numbers.
yeah.
It's not as interesting.
No, and there's some that have what looks like a username mixed into it. But anyway, yeah, I do like it too. Not as much as you like it, I guess, but I'm giving it a 7. So 7 and an 8, that's a seal of approval.
There you go. It's SolForge Fusion. Check it out. I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
Have fun shuffling.